especially gates. Gates can be the nightmare of a community association. And of course, they're the number one thing that every homeowner expects to be working 24/7. But in many cases, it takes 3 weeks for a part to come in because these parts are just not sitting in a stock room. So you have to evaluate all those situations when making decisions. So remember, even though you approved a contract, your manager is working on it. It just may not be within the time frame or expectation of the board. So the manager is going to communicate what this time frame is and when you can anticipate this work to be done. Now on your reserve projects, you're going to have a longer period of time when these projects are going to be taken care of. Your street slurry, you've got a process. Remember, with your community, just the process to get a proposal, and I'm going to talk about that when we talk about vendors in just a minute. We also inspect the common areas. We go out and look at all the areas. Do we walk your property and look at every single house on the sidewalk? No. We do our common area inspections, and then we do the compliance inspections. Compliance is done from the car. We do not go out on people's properties. We don't go in people's backyards to verify information. That is not allowed. So we create a newsletter. We communicate information to your homeowners. Now, newsletters can be a benefit or they can be a negative impact. It depends on how you communicate your information to your members. If your newsletters are always negative, do this, don't do that, you can't do this, you can do this. Well, who wants to read that when they're going to get yelled at by the board of directors? We want the newsletters to be good information. First thing in your newsletter, this is what the board approved at their last meeting. Information that's going to benefit them. Keep them well communicated on what's going on in your community. Then you go into community reminders, not negative, positive. By keeping your front yards maintained enhances the curb appeal of your community. Doesn't that sound better than clean your front yards up? We're tired of the weeds. Obviously, you have to look at what message you want to get across. Also, why not put a recipe of the month or that somebody just had a baby? Allow your members to share what's going on in the community. That's what the purpose of a community association is to bring the community together. So look at avenues to enhance your newsletters to make it more positive where members want to read it. Seal bid process. Yes, we all hate the seal bid process, but you know what? We don't have a choice around it. So when we're going out to bid, we make sure all of our proposals are seal bids. We try to enhance that in the board packet by providing you the non-price bid. So that way when we have to open up the seal bids, you already have all the information and all you have to do is document the cost. This allows you to evaluate the sealed bids without the cost before the board of directors meeting. It allows you to review your board packet before the board meeting, ask your questions so the manager can get that information. If you ask these questions in the board meeting, you're not going to have another answer until the follow-up with that business partner. If you ask the questions ahead of time, then the manager is able to get these answers to help the board make a quicker decision. So we facilitate all the common area maintenance responsibilities. We make sure all your service providers are doing their job. It is up to the manager to keep you on target, keep you on track, remind you of your annual reserve expenditures that you need to do. When do you need to replace certain things throughout the year? When do you need to do the street slurry? All these things are going to be put on your annual calendar. So the annual calendar keeps you on track as well. Remember, it is a process when you go out to bid. We are there to guide, protect, and enhance the community and guide the board through making good business decisions. So, it's 1 a.m. Your gates won't open. Who are you going to call? Nope, you're not going to call Ghostbusters. You're going to call Camco. We have somebody on call 24/7. We respond to all calls that are life-threatening, health and safety. somebody can't get out the gate or into the community, those are safety issues. We respond to those calls. Your gate's stuck open. Most boards don't want to spend the $250 that's going to cost to send somebody out to fix the gate to close on the weekend. Most times boards say leave them open, but we call you and ask you, what is your preference? You make those decisions, not Camco. Your community manager is also always available if the person on call needs help. We also call board members and talk to them and find out what they want us to do. Of course, don't call Camco or your management company if there's a fire. We are not the first ones to call. And believe it or not, we've gotten those phone calls in the past. You need to call 911. So know when to call 911 for the first responders, then call your community manager. And then of course, if you're calling 911, then we're calling your insurance agent and probably your attorney right after that. So we are there to protect the association. If the person on call doesn't respond within a timely manner, we do have a backup plan. The on-call service notifies the next person in line. I have to say, I'm on the first person that gets phone calls after somebody doesn't respond. In the last year and a half, I have only received 3 phone calls, and I'm proud to say that because 2 of them was because the water was turned off to a building that was over 200 units, and members were calling all at the same time when they got off work at 6:30, it was around 6:30, and the person on call could not handle the volume of calls. So obviously I jumped in and helped that person, and we got the information out to the members within a timely manner of what's going on. Very seldom do I ever have to get involved. Of course, if there is a fire in the community or a situation where the person on call needs guidance, our entire executive team is there to be available at any time to guide them. Because in this industry, you never know what you may have to deal with. There's a lot of life-threatening situations that we never anticipate, and we're there to guide them through this process, as well as you as board of directors. So, you're on the board. What is your responsibility? Well, the board is elected by the members, first of all. You are not elected as president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, etc. That is the Brown Act. So many times I hear, oh, I'm the president, I can't vote. Yes, you can. You were elected as directors and appointed as officers. So you have just as much equal vote as anybody else on the board. So board members are elected by the membership annually. You may have a 1-year term or a 2-year term. In some cases, you may even have a 3-year term. You have to refer to your bylaws to know what your term requirements are. The homeowners elect the board of directors, and of course, there's acclamation if there's nobody challenging those positions. So all board members have the same equal voting opportunity. And all board members should be heard. You should never exclude any board member from the decision-making process. Your governing documents state what your process is. Every board member should have the opportunity to speak on a subject item. So when you're going through a situation, someone makes the motion. We typically jump into discussion before the motion is even made. And then we make the motion, then we have more discussion. And then out of nowhere, someone may second. That's all wrong. Make the motion. Even if you disagree with the motion, get the motion on the table. Even if you disagree with it, second it. Now have your full discussion. Have every single board member have the opportunity to be heard. Allow them to express their feelings, their position, alternative solutions. After you go through that process, then you call for the vote. And if it comes out negative, where it's against, that's okay. Now you know where everybody stands. Now maybe somebody else will make another motion where you will get the majority vote of the board of directors. But until you have this process, you just don't understand where everybody stands. If you talk over each other, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be unsuccessful. And that's the other next issue. When you have a split board, what does it do to your community? It divides it. When the board doesn't work together as a whole group, it divides your members. You have animosity throughout your entire community. And real estate agents hear about that, and guess what? They don't like taking people to those communities. So try to work together as much as possible. It's okay to agree to disagree. That's fine. But when you leave that room, you support the decision of the majority. You don't walk out saying, I voted no. I'm upset with the board. They didn't listen to me. That's when you get the negative impact of your members. And that brings the negative impact throughout the entire community with animosity, negative talking, social media goes crazy, and you don't get anything accomplished. So as board members, you want to make sure that you enforce the rules and regulations, treat all homeowners with no conflict, treat them all the same. You want to make sure that you don't bring the animosity with your split boards. It's okay to disagree. And you want to make sure that you leave the personal matters at home. You do not want to vote based on personal emotions. You have to remember it's in the best interest of the community as a whole, not what fits you personally. We have to leave those personal agendas off to the side and look at what's in the best interest of the association as a whole. So, you're on the board. Does it matter what position you have? Absolutely not. You all have the same requirements. You all have the same legal responsibility. You all have the same authority. The board president runs the meeting. All management contracts say you have a point of contact, and we usually have the board president. Or we can select another person depending on how the board wants to handle that. But 99% of the time, the point of contact for management is the president. The president's required what? To be the point of contact, run the board meetings, keep people on track, keep the meeting going, and handle the association's business. Vice president acts on behalf of the president when they're absent. Secretary required in the bylaws to take the minutes, but you defer to management to take those minutes. But it's your responsibility to review them, correct them, and then make the recommendation for the approval. The treasurer, your responsibility is to review the financials. You also are to do the budget. You can defer the budget to the manager, and the manager and you review it, and then you make your recommendation to the board of directors. As a director, usually you're a liaison to one of the committees, maybe the architectural committee, the landscape committee, but every board member should be a liaison to any committees that you have within the community as well. Why do you want to have a liaison? So the committees know the purpose of their scope, as well as guidance of what the board's anticipation is for that committee to hit results. Within the board of directors, you want to make sure that you stay together and are unified at all times. So, board members oversee the association. Actually, you're a multi-million-dollar corporation in most cases. You are running a business. You have to follow the corporation guidelines as well. So you're protected through the corporate laws by being incorporated. But you have to run this as a business. I know we're all attached personally because it's our personal investments. It's probably the most highest value that you own. But with that, you have to protect the association by making sure that the funds are properly maintained. You want to make sure that the repairs are done within a timely manner. You're maintaining the association's assets of the common area and the amenities. You're seeking out the members of what they want, not just what you want, it's what everybody wants. You want to protect, preserve, enhance, harmonious living. All of these things come into play with a community association. So most of all, you want to make it what? A good environment that people want to live in. Violations, I like the word non-compliance better because violation is kind of like a negative word. Non-compliance is a little bit kinder. So before you even set up policies and procedures, you need to go through a process. You need to go through the PASS process. What is the purpose of that non-compliance regulation? Do you have the authority to even come up with that process? Do you even have the authority to adopt that violation policy? Does it conflict with your CC&Rs? Does it conflict with NRS 116? Does it conflict with the federal? You have to look at all these different things. What is the scope? What is the purpose? What is the specifications of that violation? Are you creating that violation just for one homeowner? Stop. You do not create violations for one homeowner. You seek legal counsel for one homeowner. You look at other alternatives for one homeowner. Why pass a rule that affects everybody when it only affects one person? So you have to look outside the scope of your boundaries. Quit putting everything in a square. Look at a circle and bounce things off and find solutions. You need to look at short-term, long-term goals for these violation policies. You need to look at how are you going to enforce it. If you adopt a rule that's impossible to enforce, then how are you going to follow this process? How are you going to enforce it? Who's going to enforce it? Who's going to report it? These are all things that you need to look at. Of course, our whole solution is to get a homeowner to comply. We're not there to fine homeowners so we can keep the assessments down. Our whole goal is what? To get compliance. So how do we work within compliance? Sometimes you have to make special accommodations. You have to be reasonable. You don't want it to become personal. You want it to be flexible. So always look at alternative solutions on how you can make it a friendlier community. Don't be the Gestapo board. Don't be the Cynthia on Geico. You have to be very careful so you don't give the image that you're out there every single day to just send out violation letters. Be kind, be a neighbor, because outside of a board meeting, you are a homeowner. So don't forget that you're part of the community. You can also receive those violation letters if you're in non-compliance as well. So remember, whatever you adopt, you have to enforce. Confidentiality. This is a huge one. You can't go home and discuss issues with your spouse, partner, friends, nobody. You can't discuss somebody else's non-compliance as well. Those are executive session. Executive session legal matters are confidential. You are not allowed to discuss them with anybody but board members. And I encourage you not to discuss them outside of a meeting. They should always be in the meeting with guidance from your professional advisor. Who's that? Your community manager. Be aware that you're not allowed to share your executive board packets as well, or your minutes. That is all confidential information. Do not disclose any of this information. As you know, when we get into board meetings and a homeowner in open forum starts talking about their personal violation, we stop them immediately and say, hold it, just a minute. We need to discuss this in executive session. There's reasons why we do that. Confidentiality. So make sure that you comply with the confidentiality requirements as a board member, which brings us right to fiduciary responsibility. That's your confidentiality. You have a duty to serve, preserve, and protect that association. NRS 116 is very clear on the board of directors' fiduciary responsibility. Don't forget, fiduciary responsibility also comes with duty of care and duty of loyalty. Those are part of your responsibility. You also have conflict of interest. If you have a conflict of interest, it's your responsibility as a board member to what? Recuse yourself. You do not participate in those discussions or those decisions when you have a conflict of interest. So board members should always what? Act in the best interest of the association in a whole, not in self-serving. So for your information, we've also included in this presentation NRS 116.3103. Please read this at your convenience because this is your Bible. You need to make sure that you follow the policy. As I said, business judgment rule. In 40 years that I've been doing this industry, working in it, about 20 years ago, business judgment rule came into play. And it was due to a lawsuit that a homeowner went to sue an association board of directors from making a decision. The board of directors were able to go to court, show the judge, here's all the professional advice that we received. And that's how we came up to our decision. That's where the business judgment rule came from. The judge said they cannot be held negligent because they made a business decision based on the professional advice that they received from who? Their experts. Based on that, that's where we got the business judgment rule. So when we tell you to listen to your professional advisors, it's because we want the business judgment rule to protect you. When you go against professional advisors, the business judgment rule cannot protect you. What does that mean? Your negligence. It also means possibly that your D&O insurance will not cover you. What does that mean? You have to defend yourself. You can be personally sued and lose anything and everything that you own. Example, many years ago, an association decided to invest their money in the stock market. They lost over $300,000 against professional advice from their attorney, against professional advice, their community manager. They did not listen. The board of directors were sued, and they personally had to pay back that money. And come to find out, the treasurer was the professional advisor that talked the board into investing their money into the stock market. So, and he worked for the company. That is conflict of interest. Threefold on that one. So do use business judgment rule. When we give you this information and this guidance, we're not doing it to hinder your decision-making process. We're doing this to protect you. We're also doing it to protect us. So when the board of directors make business decisions against professional advice, this is why we document that we made the recommendation to the board of directors. So we're not doing it to stop process or anything like that. We're doing that to protect you as board of directors. We want to make sure that we do everything possible to protect you from being personally sued. How do we select industry professionals? We look and vet all of our business partners that we work with. Before any contractor works on your community, we validate their contractor's license, we validate their insurance, and that they're legally allowed to work on a community association. I bet you didn't know that most insurance policies exclude homeowners associations, and they have to get a binder to allow them, with their insurance agent, to work on an HOA. So we look at all the different avenues. We look for the best ones in the industry to service your community. Yes, we do run into issues where a contractor has done an absolutely wonderful job for us for many, many years, and then they make one mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, but we're there to make sure that the mistakes are fixed, and we're there to protect the association. You want to make sure that you work with your reserve study professionals. I recommend that you look at one that has an RS designation. Construction professionals, make sure that they have the proper license for the type of work that they're doing on your community. It's funny, you interview landscapers, you interview gate companies, street slurry companies, but then you give your money to any bank without ever meeting them. You need to meet with your banking financial advisors as well. You may have $500,000 or multi-million dollars in your reserve accounts, and you say, oh yeah, give it to the ABC Bank, but you never meet with them. I recommend that you meet with your professional advisor for investments of your reserves on an annual basis or as needed. Just don't say invest the money. You want to meet the person that's investing your money. So I recommend that you meet at least with all your business partners that you have contracts with at least once or twice every other year. Something, just know who they are. You want to know who you're paying and who is providing you service. Legal professionals, we recommend the different attorneys that work within our industry. We use only attorneys that specialize in HOAs. We have to be able to make sure that the attorneys know NRS 116 what the legal requirements are. They are your #1 professional advisor. They are there to protect not you as board members, the corporation, the association. So make sure that you use licensed and insured professionals and listen to your community manager when they're providing you with all these options. At this time, we're going to turn it over to our next speaker.